Okay. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining on time. Apologies, we are just getting our live stream established, and we will be good to go shortly. All right, and as we get more people in the room, I will begin with some opening words from my end. And I also wanted to let you all know that we are simultaneously live streaming. Let's see, I will turn off the note. So we are simultaneously live streaming this to YouTube. So if you do have connection problems, we encourage you to also seek out that YouTube session since it is now live. And with that, we have a jam-packed program this evening. Thank you so much to everyone who put in all the work before and just leading up to this event. We are so honored to host the East Bay launch of Essential Truths. This is a very special anthology that just came out, and I hope that you're inspired by the presentations this evening and will go grab your own copy. So before we get into the main program, I wanted to quickly introduce myself and give some short openings as well as a land acknowledgement. My name is Akemi Chani Mai. I am the program manager at the Oakland Asian Cultural Center. OECC's mission is to build vibrant communities through API arts and cultural programs that foster intergenerational and cross-cultural dialogue, understanding, collaboration, and social justice. I would like to now share a land acknowledgement. Though today's event is being presented in a virtual space, OACC is physically based in the San Francisco Bay Area, and we would like to acknowledge the legacy and presence of the indigenous peoples who have and continue to steward this land. And we encourage anyone who's interested to use the Native Land website as one of the starting points to learn whose land you are living on. I will share a land acknowledgement provided by Canyon Sayers Roots, a member of the Costanoan, Ohlone, and Chumash people. She and her mother, tribal chairwoman Anne-Marie Sayers, are involved in the preservation of Indian Canyon, providing it as a space for all indigenous peoples in need of land for ceremony. We are in Huichin. The first language spoken on these lands is Chochenyo. We are gathered on the traditional lands of those whom we know today as the Ohlone people. Ohlone territory spans from San Francisco east towards Oakland and south towards Monterey. 8 language dialects exist within this territory, and historically, there are over 60 village sites. It is important that we recognize the original stewards of the territory. We pay our respect to elders, both past and present. We acknowledge that not only are we on their lands, but that they are still here and part of the community. There are 3 active community groups that have indigenous ancestry to this territory, and they are Confederated Villages of Lishan, Himran of Ohlone, Bay Miwok, and Plains Miwok, and Muwekma tribe. Thank you. Now, without further ado, I would love to introduce tonight's MC, who will take us through the rest of the program this evening. Shizue Siegel, editor of Essential Truths. I want to bring you up now to the virtual center stage. And really, congratulations on this phenomenal collection. I just want to hand it off to you from there.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being here today. I think I'm sort of been the victim of our own success. It's been so crazy lately that I sort of crashed badly the last couple of days, so I'm not as prepared as I could be. Let me see if I can find my share screen to share it. Okay, sorry about that. Okay. Thank you, Akemi, and thank you to Oakland Asian Cultural Center. We're gathered here on unceded Ohlone territory as we celebrate the diversity of all peoples living in harmony and justice, or living in the hopes of harmony and justice, perhaps I should say. Since 2015, right now, SF Bay has supported Bay Area writers and artists of color through workshops, events, and anthologies. Essential Truths is our fourth anthology, Essential Truths, the Bay Area in Color. It's 324 pages, including 130 writers and artists of color, ranging from poets laureate and published authors to emerging writers with roots in Native America, Africa, Asia, Latin America, the Middle East, and beyond. Our lived experience brings humanity to today's pressing issues, from the pandemic to racism, social justice, immigration, LGBT and disability rights, healing, and community building. Over the past 6 years, we've supported over 350 writers and artists through our workshops and anthologies. Now we need your support to get the books. Oops. Sorry. The slideshow is not cooperating. We need your help to get the books into bookstores, schools, and libraries throughout the Bay Area and beyond. We've almost sold out of our first 300 copies, and I need to raise another $1,000 to print more copies. If every contributor donated just $10, I'd be there. Anyway, tonight we're privileged to have readings and presentations by some of the Bay. I wish I had time to tell you more about each of these amazing people, but in the interest of time, we'll put their bios in the chat several times. We'll start with an invocation by Rafael Jesus Gonzalez, followed by readers alphabetically by first name, starting with Avacha, Clara Sue, Danny Yu, Diane Leo Umine, Almaz Abinader, and Hari Srinivasan. Then we'll have poetry and visual art presentations by Adrian Arias, Karen Sinephru, Wanda Sabir, sorry, Wanda Sabir, and Shizaway Siegel, followed by the remaining readers, Kalechi Ubozo, Sandra Bass, Shirley Huey, Sridevi Ramanathan, Susana Praver Perez, Tiny Gray Garcia, Tony Eldorado, and Rita Mikhail. Okay. Sorry. I'm trying to, okay, stop share. Okay, sorry about that. Rafael, we're ready for you. Rafael?
You're muted.
I'm muted? Huh. Can you hear me now?
Raphael's muted.
Oh, Rafael is muted.
Okay,
Rafael?
I am unmuted. Hear me.
All right. So
Okay.
Rafael is going to do an invocation, and then he's going to do.
All right. Very well. I might mention that my ancestors, the the people of the Central Plateau of Mexico would always burn sweet smoke to offer to the gods, the goddesses, that what was said was true and that it came from the heart. Because speaking in public for my people was a sacred act, and especially poetry should be a sacred act. It should try to embody the truth, and it should always be from the heart, and it should always be in the praise of life and in its defense. Essential truths should embody that and does embody that, because all the words in essential truths are indeed essential truths. So let us then declare the Zoom space sacred for the duration of the reading, so that what we may say may not be unpleasing to the forces of creation, nor to the people who hear us. Blessed be. And that said, I will share with you my contribution to essential truths. Decirlo claro. Dicen los bobos que venimos de mendigos. Estómagos vacíos, vacías las manos, para quitarles lo que ya sus propios canallas y bribones les robaron. Sí, venimos con hambre, huyendo la violencia, a donde la riqueza del imperio se encuentra, pero con las manos llenas de nuestras artesanías y labores, corazones llenos de bailes y canciones, con nuestra cocina rica en sabores. Le traemos alma a un país sin alma. Traemos el arco iris y prefieren el gris de sus temores. Se empeñan en construir muros. Sí, lo que se necesita es puentes. To say it clearly, the fools say that we come as beggars, stomachs empty hands, to take what already their own scoundrels and knaves have stolen from them. Yes, we come hungry, fleeing violence to where the riches of the empire are concentrated, but with hands full.
Thank you, Raphael. Next up is Avacha.
Do me a favor, take me off of the spotlight, because it's really difficult to focus on what I'm trying to read when I have this gigantic picture of me. Just put it in the gallery. And I want to thank you for having me in this book. And I want to thank you all for being here. I'm very honored to read one of the poems that's in the book, and then another poem that was in the other book that came out before this one, because the other poem I have in the book is too long for this time we have here. So it's called I Cried Creativity, which was inspired by the music of Eric Jacobson. I was asleep, secure and comfortably asleep, dreaming of peace and love, hypnotized by a mirage of unity and togetherness, dancing away demons of war and hate in what I thought was a land of plenty, and what I'd been taught was the land of the free. Then I opened my eyes, was slapped in the face by a wide awake nightmare, a senseless, suicidal madness, A world of selfishness, insatiable gluttony, and rampant homelessness, created by short-sighted masters of fantasy so used to dealing from their deck of unfulfillable promises that they can no longer feel anything real. I opened my eyes and found myself sadly looking at those who were empty inside and seemed to think they can fill their emptiness with all kinds of pretty things and tons of money and more and more and more and more money and the newest, prettier things. And all I could do was cry. Cry for those blindly drunk on greed as I write and smile as another poem is born, a poem about all the beauty the greedy can no longer see. I believe if we artists could only bottle our tears, no one would ever die of thirst. Our tears would become unifying melodies, creative, love-filled, organic, harmonious medicine. And we, an inspiring army of creativity, just may be able to heal the world one note at a time, one note at a time, one note at a time. This other one is called I Know We Can. We have been here before. We've sang in the face of the Klan and danced with feet all bloody on the decks of slave ships, on the longest walk on freedom marches and jail cells and concentration camps, ghettos, that we're supposed to call our home. We know this place, the concrete jungles, the reservations, a curse of and by the uncivilized who have forgotten the healing beauty of grass and trees, and the gift of clean water to drink and have lost their ability to love. We are familiar with the senseless mayhem of perpetual war, the addictive lust for power, the intoxication of bloodlust, and those who prefer the inhumane sacrifice of their souls as they try to steal ours. Yes, we have been here before. We know the hanging tree, the rope, the rape of our bodies, our cultures, the theft of our songs and our children. We have swam through the slime of misogyny. We've been here, we know. Racism, greed, and stupidity have no conscience. And it's only a matter of time before the insatiable self-destruct, before they devour each other. We've been through it all before and we can get through it all again. We just have to be careful, very, 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 very careful. The madness of this narcotic is contagious. We must not get drunk on the stench of this poison. We have too much work to do. We must turn this suicidal drug into fertilizer and let our tears fall down on deserts, glaciers, and jungles and run down the faces of good-hearted people everywhere. I cry, and 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 my tears come down like a waterfall, an unending waterfall for all the victims of civilization. We have been here before, and together we can heal. I know we can. I know we can. I know we can. Thank you so much for allowing me to be part of this amazing book with all you wonderful people.
Thank you, Avacha. I know that some of you are kicking back in your messy apartments and maybe lying down or even in bed, but you know, the readers get a lot of energy from seeing your faces. I see a lot of names here, people that I haven't seen in a while, and we would love to see you and love to get your comments in the chat and your applause and everything else, anything else that you care to offer to feed the energy tonight. Anyway, our next reader, who I haven't had a chance to see in a while, is Clara Sue. I'm so happy to see you here. I know you've been really busy in Chinatown, so take it away, Clara.
Thank you, Zish. It's an honor to be here. And thank you for all your hard work. But you have to remember to take care of yourself, okay? Because you're a precious cargo. I have one poem. Walking monks. Are we passing through time? or has time passed us? 9 months of furling, bound and deprived. New variants born by the invisible strain. Are they passing through? Or are we done squabbling, squandering? Time with its sly fingers wrinkles the surface of our skin. They walk silent, each measured breath, the redemption of one soul, not seen, not heard, not felt.
Thank you, Clara. All right, next is Diane Leo, and they're going to share their screen, I think.
Awesome, thanks, Shiz. Thank you so much, Shiz, and the whole team for letting me be a part of this beautiful, beautiful book. I'm going to read 2 poems. This first one is called Menstruation as Prayer. May I carve out, slough away, to bleed as practice, to say no and mean it. May I shed what prepared me for futures that never came. May I be raw and unready, a nest not yet gathered. May I rest my frayed fantasies, let the current flowing from me be my balm. May I bleed. That was my first poem. And for the second one, I am going to share my screen. 1 second. So this next poem is my kind of love letter to San Francisco and all the peoples in it. This is an ad that I wrote this poem in response to, and the parts that I snapped during are the parts that are from the ad directly. And it's called Read Your Ad. And I think the person that gave me this title is here. So thank you, Jenny Lesser. I saw your letter, first known to me as an ad, taped hurriedly on a metal box outside the coffee shop near my apartment. Interior painting as low as 189, a small room. Your fonts swell and shrink across the page. Capitalized letters standing proudly as if they know they're breaking the rules. Design and create things in that drawing board in your mind. I felt undone by your assuredness. The intimacy of your claims to know what I keep close and rarely publish for non-me audiences. At the bottom of your letter, you left us 3 tear-off tabs in a neat line, containing not just your number, but a miniature version of your love letter in its entirety. Carry me with you, you seem to ask, and pre-ripped each one, so all we had to do was say yes. It's never too late. This part, almost a whisper. In my fantasy, you wrote this letter just for me. Taped it up on each telephone pole, hoping I would find it. Keep your brain from turning into jello by reading books, seeing the writing on the wall, your gentle plea crescendoing across the page into an impassioned intervention. A Hail Mary, the kind you only risk for the ones who truly matter. Don't worry, I let your words spill their stinging medicine down my throat, all the way to my fingertips as I tore off the first of your tabs. By the time I memorized your letter, you had already painted my interior. Full and awake, I walked home with your paper gospel cradled in my palm, belly raw with purpose, reciting my new divine instruction. Design and create a small room in your mind. See the writing. It's never too late. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I dropped off the Zoom. I'm going to get back on.
You're still there, Shiz.
Am I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're
All
still here.
I don't see the screen on my screen. So anyway, so next is Diane Leo Umine.
I just wanted to say thank you to Shizue and the committee for all of your hard work. 3s, microaggression. 1, that it's insisted to you that rice be made in a rice cooker because they heard from some authoritative but obscure source that all Asian people make rice in rice cookers. 2, that you get asked if you speak Mandarin and then proceeding to mention they have a quote unquote crazy Vietnamese sister-in-law. 3, that you can't even socially distance shop in a grocery store without an employee approaching you and your spouse to insinuate that English is not your first language. No, I was born here, you insist, and English is my first language. Never mind that your spouse's first language was not English. You can't discern which is worse, the microaggression itself, or how the employee then proceeded to spout fragments from different Asian languages, or the fact that said employee both broke your 6-foot boundary and removed his mask. Fear. 1, that even if Bay Area housing prices fall, you won't return to and afford living where you grew up, that the remainder of your friends will be priced out and forced to leave. 2, that the Trump banners under neighbors' lawns disappeared promptly on November 4th, like Halloween was suddenly over and the jack-o'-lanterns chucked in the trash. Don't worry, it's just more purple where you live, you're told, as if they left those royal blue and violet crayons outside in the hot valley summer and then mashed them together with a hammer. That explanation doesn't assuage the reality that the Proud Boys unabashedly lurk some 40 minutes away. 3, that your grandmothers will both live the remainder of their near 100-year-old lives with the anxiety of anti-Asian hate crimes, violence undoubtedly combusted by the president's Kung flu and Chinese virus vitriol, that regardless of how much primarily East Asians have thrived under the glass ceiling as the model minority, they are still the perpetual foreigners, that the model minority trope is intertwined with anti-Blackness. Acceptance. 1, that you can appreciate living somewhere outside of the Bay Area, that had you been living in San Francisco during the shelter in place, you would have felt boxed into a claustrophobic 7x7 square mile cage. That the grieving process of leaving your hometown is more fluid than fixed, more than well-meaning people telling you just to get over it. It's a grieving process of untangling your family's history of the broader Chinese diaspora, of grieving that your grandmother will die before you're fully vaccinated. It's a grieving process of peeling, preserving, and protecting the city's creative soul from the talons of gentrification. 2, that regardless of who is president, work is to be done. 3, that somehow you can try to understand the other side, but still brim that big city self-righteousness. What really is the other side? Is it a barbed wire fence? Is it an ivy-crusted wall? Is it a miles deep moat with an impeccable fortress? Breaking down the cell water, the water boundaries, the capillaries, the veins of the matter, maybe under those layers, we and they are still human. Maybe we and they are all humans with demons and vices. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Next is Elmaz Abinader, who is one of my teachers from Vona. Elmaz?
Greetings, everybody. I want to give a big hug to Chisaway for being the godmother of all BIPOC writers in the Bay Area. And one of the things I want to mention, with all her accomplishments, all her writing, all the ways that she corrals these pieces together, she stays so humble and she deserves so much. So I hope that we continue to support right now. And here's my reading. When I was studying linguistics in my PhD program, I was fascinated with Irving Goffman, who wrote a lot of theories, including frame theory. And in frame theory, here's a short story, or a real short lesson on frame theory, that when you reframe something, it becomes reality. It's no longer outside of the reality, it becomes the reality. So this little meditation on being in Zoom calls is my response to frame theory and Zoom calls in the last year. It's called Living in the Square. I just got off a Zoom call with my friend Maha, who lives in Cairo. To hook up, we exchanged several emails, calculated the time difference, checked our calendars, and settled for 9:30 a.m. in Oakland, 7:30 p.m. in Cairo. She appeared on her side of the screen, reclining against pillows at her seaside home in Ain Sokhna, while I sat in my red chair near my front window, the winter light brightening my face. Our relationship started back in 1996, when I was on a State Department tour on the Middle East, and she was writing her dissertation on Arab American poets, including me. Over the years, our relationship developed deeply, but along with our kinship, the modes of communication changed. Calling cards, then developed into Skype, then to Google Voice, then to Facebook calls, then to WhatsApp, and now Zoom. We show up at each other's computer screen, holding our own cup of Arabic coffee. The sense of familiarity is keen. We know each other's houses, look at children and grandchildren, have shout outs from our husband. After the call, my husband says, "How was your time with Maha?" The question was interesting because he didn't say, "How was your call, your meeting, your Zoom?" He said, "How was your time with Maha?" The switch over from in-person to online has changed how we are positioned in our day. We sit more, move less, wear spongier clothes, rarely put on shoes. In addition, we are seen and see ourselves in a proscenium view. We not only know we're present at a Zoom, our visibility to ourselves is the constant awareness of our appearance, as long as we have our cameras on. The screen is not a mirror, although we are in close proximity to every detail of our face, and sometimes it's too much. What can we do? Can we change the lighting? Should I put on different colors? Would a scarf make me look better? The Zoom mirror also exposes our face, our space. We curate what's around us, bookshelves, paintings, plants, a nice yellow wall. Because in reality, we're not only attending the Zoom, it is meeting with us in our place in the world. The frequency of Zoom activities fills many of our lives, taking over jobs, education, classes, fitness, game time. It has become an online life so much, we enter the Zoom as if we're really going into a room, an auditorium, or a gym. A friend says, "I went to Jericho's reading." Another asks if I will attend the writing group. I imagine they are sitting in an auditorium listening to poetry, around a table sharing poems. After I take a minute to reframe, the reality hits me. They are basically going to sit in a chair they sit in for all their meetings and join other people sitting in the same chair that they sit in for all their meetings. Going to something, attending, being present basically means clicking the right link. And we're there. At a conference, a Pilates class, a reading group, a cooking class, an interview, school, and work. And while this has kept us in our spaces, it has opened our world. Writers, actors, friends, and family who couldn't often be together are gathering inside the squares to tell stories, play games, learn folklore and histories, stretch and meditate and engage their imaginations. We can reach across the wide world and meet with the author of a favorite book or a friend we haven't seen in years. People who never collected before are now online together. After my call with Maha, I reflected if the pandemic had happened another time in our history, say the calling card times, how would we handle that need to gather or to see and hear the familiar? These intimacies, these meetings have grown in importance, and reaching toward each other, even on a tech platform, reminds us of our humanity, even as we are trapped in these squares. Thank you so much.
She's away. Sorry, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Next up is Hari Sreenivasan, student at UC Berkeley and a non-speaking autistic who uses text-to-speech to communicate and to read excerpts from his piece. Hi, Hari, it's good to see you.
What lovely readings so far. Thank you all. Next is excerpts from my poetry prose piece titled, Truths from a Zoom Reality, Boxed Faces Floating Around. Tetris game in our dreams. Only faces, perchance, shoulders. Rest of body a distant reverie. I mourn the loss of the human body. I mourn the loss of touch in society. I mourn, oh, I so mourn this new reality. For much of society, Zoom did become the new reality when a microscopic virus brought the world to its knees. Yet an essential truth emerged. Humankind can adapt, and very quickly when called upon to do so. Employees could work from home and universities and schools switched to Zoom instruction. Ways were found to ensure social distancing, yet carry on productivity. The irony is that the disability community has been asking for the option of remote working for decades, yet we're told it was impossible. A hybrid option would have been a blessing to the disability community. For many reasons. Yet when the able-bodied world demanded, the impossible became the possible overnight. I'm one of those disabled autistics with minimal speaking skills and a user of alternative communication technology. Mine is a very visible disability with my impulsive and rather random body movements called autistic stance. Topped off by sensory processing difficulties, health issues, and ADHD amongst other things. Yes, I miss the human interaction and interacting with real people that the lockdown has brought about. I do miss going into stores and restaurants or attending events. Most of all, I miss sitting in campus classrooms at UC Berkeley and listening to my professors and the hum of student chatter around me. But, though I was there, I wasn't. When you have communication challenges, you were often left out of that conversational hum. I was an odd man out, the disabled student sitting at the back of the room. But in Zoom education, suddenly I was on equal footing with those other boxes in Zoom. My disability was no longer a forefront. Selective use of camera off and muting the audio meant you could control sensory input. With the chat box, I became part of the conversation rather than an observer of conversations. In some ways, I've been more productive this year and participated in more events than I have ever been. I have connected with events and people from across the world, something that would have been thought impossible in a pre-pandemic world. The year, which marked 30 years since the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act, also saw the disability rights movement and Black Lives Matter movement gain more visibility and momentum. There is actually a lot of intersectionality between the two movements. For instance, it turns out a police officer's idea of a suspicious person often lines up with autistic behaviors, starting with the lack of eye contact, the inability to comply with commands, unusual body movements, and continuing to perform actions even after being told to stop or trying to break free as they are unable to tolerate touch or certain sounds. The effect of disability is just exponentially compounded if you are from the BIPOC community. In terms of justice, we are making progress, though the journey is far from done. However, an overarching essential truth still stands, that humans are innately good. Charles Darwin is most associated with the phrase, survival of the fittest. But what is less known but equally important is Darwin's survival of the kindest, that our human species survives only due to its instinct to care and to have sympathy. Research shows that emotions like compassion are hardwired into our DNA. And indeed, during this very stressful year of a global lockdown, we saw unprecedented acts of generosity and compassion all over the world. We have the innate capacity for all that's good within ourselves. Let us reach down to that goodness and project that thought into the external world through action. That's the daily nudge we need to create long-term sustainable change. Thank you.
Thank you, Hari. That was amazing. I did not expect to get that. It just showed up in the submissions. I was blown away. It's a vantage point that we don't often get to hear. Let's see. Now we're going to have some visual art by Adrian Arias, Karen Sinephru, Wanda Sabir, and me. And I think that Adrian is going to share screen because I published low-res images in the book. So it was one of those things. I think he gave me the high-res images at the last minute, and I was so crazy that I did not put them in the book. So take it away, Adrian.
Hola. Hello, everybody. Yeah. Let me know if you can see the images that I'm sharing. Yes, it's okay. Because sometimes, yeah. Well, this first image is the fantastic animal number 12 and is based in the COVID. You can see a huge COVID head that became very important in the planet. This other one is an image of an art installation for Day of the Dead at SOMART dedicated to George Floyd. And this last one is a performance that I did during pandemic, you know, with all the care possible, using the mask with just few people inside the gallery. That you can see like 4 people inside and they going in and out. That was very special to try these new concepts in time and space. I will leave this image and read my poem in the book. That is a beautiful book. Thank you, Shishu. It's the 2020. I walk on the stones that you left me on purpose, one over the other, in apparent total equilibrium, like your hair when you comb it in slow motion. As the coordinated scream of those who protest and march without fear, like the silence of the astronaut who looks at the planet Earth while floating and feel that this is all a dream. I walk on the verb without adjectives. I sleep, I fall, I get up. I will of the wisp arise at every corner. The animals return to the empty streets for a few days, checking over the territory that we took from them, contemplating the strange allegories to progress we built. I bite my lips, while the consonants lost in the bubble of what I couldn't tell you indiscreetly touch each other, making that guttural and invisible noise that characterized them. I walk on the salt of dry and elusive tears. The afternoon glows return your silence to me. You're gone, and there is no reason to be sad while I bite my sandwich. The universe becomes an empty glass. I'm thirsty. I'm thirsty. In the distance, a star collapses. Thousands of planets are born that we will never know, but they are there, and they will have their own love stories. They have their own pandemics, their own revolutions. On the rustic formation of clouds, stop in a paper sky, I see you, and I approach you without fear to say goodbye, 6 feet away. And suddenly, it's already tomorrow. I just want to feel like I can still get home. When I finally take the stones out of my pocket, I'll take off the mask that slows my breathing. I will wet the shore, the brightness, the oblivion. And without haste, I will write a poem for someone that I don't know, a poem for you, where my hands warm your feet, where my lips silently kiss your skin. I'll sew all the silences that somebody left lying all over the place, and I'll have a blanket that keeps me warm without grudges. I will fall asleep on the edge of the cosmos. I'll be the nothing that people don't like. I'll be my own eclipse. I'll be a forbidden word, and will have the possibility to disappear without fear of being forgotten. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Adrian. Next is Karen Sinephru. Are you here? Karen?
Shizu, I don't see a participant with Karen's name.
Okay. Huh. All right. Okay. Let me email her and see if she's having a problem getting in. Actually, maybe Rachel or Kemi, can you do that? Would it be possible? Do you have Karen's email?
Karen's email? Let me double check. I also do have her artworks in the PowerPoint you shared, so I wasn't sure if you had prepared backup notes, but that is also an option. But yeah, we can move ahead while I.
If you have her email address, maybe you can just contact her. And I have the PowerPoint, and I have them in the order that she wanted to talk about them. Okay. So I can go ahead and do mine, and hopefully she'll turn up.
I don't have her email address in my account, unfortunately.
Okay, let's see.
I can reach out to her.
Let's be flexible here.
Oh, Kelechi volunteered to reach out to Karen.
Yeah, Kelechi, why don't you go next and I will email Karen. Thank you. I was just thinking that same thought.
Can you also type it in the chat?
Oh, wow. I was just saying I could email her, but yes, I'll go.
Yeah, do you mind? You were going to be next after the artists.
There's more artists too. I don't want to. If that's helpful, I will do it.
Yeah, because the next two were going to be, Wanda Sabir couldn't make it. I was going to do a tribute to her, and then it was going to be me. So if you go, then I can email Karen.
That sounds great.
Alrighty.
Since I'm going, I wanted to say a couple of things, and I know we're not really allowed to do this, but Shizue's birthday was last week. It was her 75th birthday. And the only thing she actually wanted, yay, happy birthday, was for folks to donate so she could keep publishing this book. So I really just want to uplift that this amazing person who turned 75 was just like, could you please help donate so we can keep publishing the book. So I want to just remind people, if you're tuning in on YouTube, please go to rightnowsf.com. Please donate $10, $5, $25. Let's get the word out. I'm putting it in the chat. Share it with people. If you loved what you heard, you definitely want a copy. You can also Venmo and someone will tell you that information who's not me, but Shiz is not great at talking about herself. So we're gonna uplift her and talk about her and support her because she always supports BIPOC writers. Some folks who've never been published are published because of her. So that's my soapbox, and now I'll read. Thanks, folks. Broken Hourglass. 1. She still haunts me. In another timeline, my future stepdaughter. She has her father's sea green eyes and long, blonde, curly hair. To call her doll-like would be offensive to her strength and her grit. She's not the delicate type, but my God, she's gorgeous. More importantly, baby girl is smart. She hears the unsaid words of adults, and she is always listening. She can charm her way out of trouble and is unfamiliar with the word no. She holds my hand as we walk into the toy store, and I tell her to pick out any toy she wants, my treat. Her eyes widen, and she runs to survey the store. I feel the tiniest bit of panic for my bank account. She returns with a brown baby doll. I want this one. She's beautiful and she looks like you. And then she thrusts the brown baby doll into my arms and starts to look for accessories. Such a simple statement, so casual. I'm winded and thrown and melted. I hold on to this precious moment. It will be our last. 2. He's a good white man. He reads White Fragility. He shows up at all the Black Lives Matters protests, and he brings baby girl. He works in social justice, and I'm in awe of his allyship and his political astuteness. We're the perfect interracial family, holding hands with loving gazes. We confront all types of racism. In San Francisco, it's praise. White strangers telling me how happy they are that we're together so that they could feel comfortable in their discomfort. When his Southern-rooted father decides to never speak to him for proposing to a Black woman, my love swiftly disowns him. I am loved truly. He does and says all the right things, except he decides to move to Sonoma County and assumes I'll move there too when we are married. There is no conversation, no discussion. He just moves. He doesn't quite understand consent, though he swears he's a feminist. And I tell him about the Confederate flag I catch sign of entering the county lines on my drive up to Oakland. He brushes off my fear. But I thought he was an ally. Wait, how does someone become an ally? Is it an identity that you achieve? Do you have to take a recertification test? Like, is there a board of wokeness that approves your progress? And who is on this board? It can't be your one Black friend from high school, college, work, church. And what if you were an ally on Monday, but on Wednesday, when your fiance told you she was scared because she saw a Confederate flag, you decided to take PTO? Does your allyship still count? Later, I'll learn that allyship is not an identity, but a verb. It is not a destination. It is an action. 3. Today is calm. I hold baby girl's hand and we walk toward the playground. I'm surprised to see several Muslim families playing, boys and girls immaculately dressed in white and running everywhere. My guard lowers. Baby girl looks at the other brown faces and slowly stops playing. She runs to us. What's wrong, honey? Her face framed by blonde curly Q says, there are too many brown people on this playground. Punched in the gut and fury rising to my cheeks, heat. Take a deep breath. Are you afraid? I ask. Her eyes widen and she gives me a knowing look. Yes, almost with a sigh. Crushed, collapsed, broken. Who taught her this hate? She was just buying brown baby dolls. I need to walk. I need someone to blame. I need to go somewhere. He blames me for getting upset, and I blame him for bringing her here, for breaking her innocence, making her a copy of his father. But is it this place? Have I given it too much power? The real question trembling underneath the surface that I fear the most. Is it him? She cries and holds onto my leg. How can she cling to me for protection from people who look like me? I want to go with you, she starts to wail. I gently shake her off. It hurts when she touches me. You can't ever come with me. She leaves me in broken doll parts, shocked and undone, angry, twisted, and confused. This is not forgiveness. This is release. It is time to release my anger at a frozen 6-year-old. I don't live there anymore, and I am not this story. It is a tiny patch of fabric on a complex quilt that is my life. I will take these lessons as gifts, pain as truth, and rage as power. I have my own reflection to attend to, and I must say, it's beautiful chaos out here. Thank you all.
Oh, Shizue, your audio is, there we go.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm in, am I unmuted now?
I can hear you, yes.
Yeah, all right, yeah, I'm having a lot of fun at this end. I jumped on another computer because my other computer froze up when I was trying to email Karen. Well, I emailed her and then I called her and she's stuck in traffic. So she'll be home in a few minutes. And in the meantime, I will try and do my PowerPoint, except it's on a different computer now. So I'm not sure that the settings are correct.
Shiza, would you like me to share the images on my side, if you don't mind saying like next slide?
Well, I'm going to read a poem, so I think I need to be able to just hit the things. Anyway, let me try it from my end. I just need to start it. Okay. Sorry about this. All of my Asian American horror of not doing things absolutely perfectly all the time. This project has completely blown all that out of existence. So what can I say? All right. So let's see if this works. Okay, so I thought that I would use my 5 minutes to partly show some of the artwork that is in the book. Not that I have any time to paint anymore, but I have 2 paintings in Essential Truths that offer contrasting responses to colonization. In Imperatrix Mundi, Napoleon's head down in the bottom was replaced by the smiling face of a Japanese immigrant Bachan, a grandma who rules her world through love, resiliency, and humble hard work. You can see the Daruma staff on one side, and she's wielding a broom on the other instead of a sword and scepter. The next slide, if I can advance it, please go. Okay, this one is called Luco Loco, which is Philippine slang for mixed up or crazy. And it's a portrait of a young Asian American seeking identity in the face of Catholicism, technology, and pop culture icons. So I don't have time to paint much nowadays, but I never stop seeing. So I will read part of my poem, City Snapshots, Spring, over some of my photos, if I can get them, which are also in the book. I sort of filled up all the blank spaces with whatever photos I could grab out of my collection of stuff. So we'll see whether or not they show up or not. Okay, City Snapshots, Spring. We are a plain people whose meager dollars sent a generation to college so they could look down on us too. Now they are learning something priceless. There are no guarantees, except death comes to all of us. Life comes from how you rise to meet it. In a rent-controlled apartment, A woman liberated from an office breathes herself into new life, heaves from an enclosing womb where she was bathed in an amniotic fluid of guilt, shame, fear, rage, awash with others' thoughts, and the impulse to make things right for them. I'm going to try and advance this. Sorry. There we go. All right. Propelled into new awareness, she lets the universe suffuse her like a tender newborn. Perhaps she brings joy just by being right here in this moment, as dawn lightens the sky in a now hushed city. Birds stir to a new day. Strangers wave from across the street. Even cars stop to let her walk. In the newly silenced mission, a willowy woman, a shade lighter than cafe au lait, bleached dreads in a stylish top knot, talks loudly. Into a cell phone? No, she's arguing with herself, with sharp yips and sudden jumps as if to leap out of her body, escape her own skin. I want to take her in my arms, calm her with my eyes, she who fears touch yet longs for it. Before I can reach her, she turns the corner and disappears. But another woman sits on the sidewalk, legs crossed as if in meditation, hoodied head erect, searching for the peace she knows is there, but not here, not in Mission Street grit. She's haloed by orange peels, discards or a gift. A man towers over her, screeching like a banty rooster. Her neck shrinks into her shoulders. He spits invective in Espanol. Does she understand? I wait until he turns his back. Our eyes connect as I slip her a 5 rolled tight, so he won't notice that she now has something more he could take. Her face is grimy, brown as the street, a darker shade than when she left Sri Lanka, Kerala. I wish I could tell her it'll be all right, but my mouth is ashen. In the TL, a clot of homeless shelter in place on a Medusa raft of sidewalk, side by side, heads decline to the same angle, shielding each other from hate that kills as surely as virus. Back in the Western city, the Greek produce man misses his wife, stranded on a visit home. The Brits appropriated xenophobia along with Elgin marbles, but Peter lives by philoxenia, the love of strangers. Recalling what the Nazis did to his mountain village in World War II, he hires refugees from Salvador and Albania who suffuse his broccoli and zucchini with love and fortitude. Fierce-eyed Alma folds conservative prayers into paper angels to save us all from socialism, while her cousin Lefty shrugs with twinkling eyes and tells us when the figs are ripe. In the secret green heart of my stucco rimmed apartment, in the secret green heart of my stucco rimmed block, willows sway in the salt air. A riot of succulents shoots golden stars towards the sun. Weeks of rampant glory before heads drop on withered stems. Native Californians and hardy migrants, winter frost and summer drought. Okay, so next is Sandra Bass.
Thank you, Shijoy. Big love. So the name of my pieces will be carried forward upon the whispers of our elders. Dearly beloved, we have gathered here today to get through this thing called life. Prince. One evening last year, before we all were sent home to shelter, I got a call from my mother. She told me that her cousin and her cousin's husband had been rushed to the hospital. Both were diagnosed with pneumonia. Shortly after entering the hospital, my mother's cousin died. She was 88. Her husband spent weeks linked to life by a ventilator. Tests later revealed that they were both positive for the coronavirus. Death by an infectious disease is an exceptionally lonely experience. No one was allowed to be close to our kin, to hold her hand, gently knead aching muscles, or express words of love that may have been deeply felt, but perhaps never shared. In her final hours, she did speak to a family member by phone. Her last words, spoken between labored and fragile breaths, were, "Remember me." Traveling upon the misty vapors of our exhalations, this tiny crowned conqueror wound its way across the globe, devastating families, cities, even countries in its path. Along its journey, it unveiled truths about our current state that are breathtaking in both their beauty and brutality. The sounds of sheltered Italians singing together from their homes in the medieval town of Siena reminded us that our desire to connect transcends our ability to share physical space. And then there were the calls that came from pundits and elected politicians to sacrifice our elders on the altars of the American way of life. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick of Texas framed this fatal bargain as such. No one reached out to me as a senior citizen to ask, are you willing to take a chance on your survival in exchange for keeping the America that all Americans love for your children and grandchildren? If that's the exchange, I'm all in. The lieutenant governor's notion that some lives are expendable to save our way of life, and his odd arrogance in thinking that he should have been consulted about whether millions should live or die, did not emerge anew during our present crisis. In fact, this callous logic, what freedom fighter Ruby Sales has called empire consciousness, lies within the very foundations of the America Lieutenant Governor Patrick thinks we are all so eager to preserve. Empire consciousness prizes domination for the chosen few above all else. It thrives by seeking to snuff out genuine human connection, our collective narratives, historical memory, and embodied spirituality, and to supplant these qualities with a social order that deifies the constructs of whiteness and wealth concentrated at the very top. The self-destructive and dehumanizing contradictions of empire consciousness are embedded in the very birthing of America. Slave-owning patriot Patrick Henry emphatically declared, "Give me liberty or give me death," even as he denied dozens of enslaved human beings their liberty. Like many politicians of his day and ours, Patrick Henry betrayed his deepest values to preserve the reigning economic order. For even though he was a vocal opponent of slavery for years after the Revolution, it appears he did not free one single slave throughout his lifetime or even upon his death, as he could not fathom, he would say, the general inconvenience of living here without them. Despite all efforts to conveniently erase the humanity of enslaved Africans, however, the empire consciousness enterprise failed completely in this regard. While the unspoken aim of empire consciousness is to crush the souls of the oppressed and oppressors alike, for make no mistake, the souls of Patrick Henry and his brethren are surely fractured by their choices. Enslaved Africans and their descendants were liberatory geniuses in finding a way out of no way, as the old adage goes. Across the span of centuries, they found a way to keep the internal fire of future liberation aflame, even when there was no rational reason to believe that freedom would ever come. To dream of freedom while suffering under the lash and the lust of slave owners requires a level of consciousness about your worth and the worth of your people that runs counter to everything empire consciousness holds dear. This consciousness rejects the notion that certain lives are expendable in order to prevent the general inconvenience of the privileged few. In defiance against the hopelessness systems of oppression cultivate to maintain command and control, those operating from this plane of consciousness understood that our liberation was not bound to a body or dependent upon the graces of a totalitarian power. Freed from the constraints of time, place, and corporeal reality, the potential for mountaintop consciousness, as Ruby Sales calls it, can be discovered within each individual spirit. It is activated when grounded in something larger than ourselves, gains strength when we gather together as fellow travelers, triumphs when we act collectively and courageously, and is carried through the ages upon the whispered wisdoms of our elders. By bearing witness and sharing legacies through their devotion and their admonitions, even in the lessons learned from witnessing the travails of unmoored or misdirected lives, our elders bring forth the wisdoms that have sustained us. And at their best, their lives stand as a testament to the evolution of our human journey and inspire future generations to grow beyond what even they could imagine. This call to sacrifice the elders is not noble, as Lieutenant Governor Patrick suggests. It is not just a heartless disregard for the lives of those who are no longer seen as worthy contenders in the fictive race for the survival of the fittest. It is an age-old tactic that has been used throughout American history to hobble our future liberatory possibilities by attempting to destroy our kinship with the past. It failed then, and it will fail now if we stand united against the destructive empire narrative and have the courage to birth a new story. It is ironic that an illness that takes our lives by stealing our breaths also invites us to consider what needs to be breathed into life in our time. For some of us, the experience of sheltering has been chaotic and frightening. For others, it has seemed like endless solitude or a time of reflection and reconnection. Wherever this moment finds us, the possibility of reimagining new ways of being with and for each other lies there as well. And so, dearly beloveds, we are gathered here today in this precious, pregnant pause to figure out what we need to do and who we need to be to get through this earthly experience. This marathon riddled with maladies and melodies, joys and pains, this thing called life. After the ill winds of illness have ceased to blow, will we choose to ventilate our world with justice and compassion? When the sting of grief for loved one's loss and the passing of a torturous but familiar normality has subsided, what wisdoms of the elders will we bring forth, and what new story will we willingly embrace? And as the tides of our lives turn towards holding more yesteryears than future horizons, and our voices are reduced to whispers, and the fruits of what we did with our time are laid before another generation, may we be remembered as the brave and true ones who dared to stand hand in hand, hearts open, unafraid, ushering in the break of a new day.
Thank you, Sandra. Well, I knew her when she was just the ED at the Ella Baker Center when I first met her. And then she started to work for UC Berkeley as the director of the Public Service Center. And she is now interim vice chancellor and chief of staff of student affairs in charge of the reopening. So I don't know how you have time to write with all of your other duties, Sandra, but I so much respect for you. Thank you for being here. So Karen Sinephru is here. Karen, can you turn on your video and unmute yourself?
Yes, I am attempting to unmute and turn on my video.
Cool. And Akemi, I think I will take you up on your offer to do the slides, and we will start with slide number 8, which is Karen Sinephru's piece, Technokisi.
Got it. Let me just line that up.
And then we'll keep going, and we'll do Wanda Sabir's after Karen's.
All right.
Well, first I want to say greetings, everyone. And thank you so much, ancestors, for this moment, for our commingling, so that we can move forward as one. My name is Karen Sinephru. I'm the founder and co-curator of the Black Women's God exhibition at Soma Arts, usually. And so before I became a curator, I would create artwork. I'm self-taught, and this particular piece is called Techno Kisi, and it is dialoguing with a very ancient African called the Nkisi. Normally, it's a wooden sculpture that has a box at the center of it, which is called the power source. And what I attempted to do was to invert the Techno-Kisi by making it a soft figurative. And then instead of putting nails all over the Nkisi, which are incantations or prayers that are around resolution within the African community, I instead created these satchels that have ash and wood and other hidden properties inside of them that are also connected to prayer. So each one is designed to make the hands move with it so that there's a very strong intention. And so instead of a box, I put a box that actually you can see into, whereas with the Nkisi, you're not supposed to see what is the hidden properties. And instead, I wanted technology to be at the center and have images of people's eyes so that even though we could look into their eyes, the mystery was still embedded in the traditional practice of the Nkisi. Next. So the Techno-Kisi was created in 2013. In 2018, I created this piece. It's 8 by 10. It has over 3,000 pieces, again, with the meditation on prayer and creating individual pieces that become a reflection of the community. And this piece is called Call Your Mama. And it also has a telephone that is connected to it. It's a vintage phone and an iPod that is hidden behind the piece, so that it's an interactive piece. When you pick up the phone, you actually hear the voices of a few Black parents who were in court questioning the few officers who have been arrested for murdering Black community members. And so instead of following the script in the courtroom, the parents would start to ask very directly to the police, why did you kill my son, or why did you kill my my grandson or grandchild or daughter? And so the piece is supposed to make people come up to it, look at it, be in awe with it, but then pick up the phone and then have a shifting emotional response to it. On the far right side, there's a bell, and that's actually the telephone, the spiritual telephone, which is that after people listen to the voices, they're supposed to go over and grab the bell and ring the bell and call the ancestors forward. Next. I also draw. I'm a self-taught artist, but with a very strong guidance of my husband, who is also a self-taught artist, Malik Sinephru. This piece is 5 by 6 feet. And it's the first portrait that I've ever done of myself. I did this piece in 2020, and it was the first time I've ever done a solo show. You know, I had been offered to do a solo show back in 2013 when Mayor London Breed was the executive director of the AAACC, and the twins, Melora and Melanie Green, were the curators. And that's actually the first time that I said, no, I didn't think that I was ready to do a a solo exhibition. And also I felt like I knew so many other artists that were so much more experienced, they were veterans. And I just didn't think it was right to step in front of them. So I said, instead, I wanted to do an exhibition that would include those women that had inspired me as creatives. And so it took 7 years for me to get to a point where I felt like I could do a solo show. And so this piece is called The Air Done Pulled. And so I entitled the exhibition that because, and this portrait because, well, one, the image, for those who may be familiar with Harriet Tubman's photograph, I took her frame, her format, the gown, but then I reconstructed the top of the form with my body, but it's her dress, except for hanging off of the shoulders. Of that time period, they weren't dressing in that manner, and I also incorporated her hands and mine into the drawing. Next. So in 2021, I did 3 drawings, mixed media drawings. This one has acrylic, gold leaf, and pencil, graphite. And so I wanted to speak to the pushback that the community was having in the world, that the global community was having because of the death of George Floyd, and people bearing witness to that. But I also wanted to acknowledge what it means for Black people to be murdered in a particular kind of way, and then an honor being given to them that was not acknowledged in their life. And also I wanted to point out that the importance that Black mothers have in the Black community, so that, even at his death, he was calling, Floyd was calling on, as he was getting close to death, he was calling on his mother. And so immediately I wanted to change this kind of iconic photograph that most artists are painting or drawing from, and give it a slogan, which is God is a Black mama. Next. And so I also wanted to, show the anointing of these spirits who move us to, challenge injustice. But in this instance, the halo of Breonna Taylor is cracked, because I wanted to also signify that justice hasn't been served. Next.
Oh, that was it, Karen. We can backtrack if you want to keep on talking. I haven't been timing, but if you want to talk a little bit more about,
I think I'm good. I appreciate this opportunity to talk about my work and to hear other artists discuss theirs, and this is a beautiful moment.
Well, I have to say, I remember when you were on Facebook and posting and thinking aloud about the Black woman is God. I think it was a couple of years before the first exhibition. I can't actually remember. But I just loved the thought process involved and the fact that you were sharing it. And I have been to a couple of the exhibitions and just been floored. I just love the procession of women dressed in white that begins the opening ceremony. And this year in particular, I reached out to a lot of different communities to submit art, but I didn't get much of a response. I think COVID was impacting a lot of different people, and but I saw so many amazing pieces at the Black Woman is God show, which was held at SOMARTS, and it's visible virtually online. And so many of the pieces were so stunning that I asked you for permission to reach out to some of those artists, and many of them are in the book. And I think that because this year many of the themes were serious and dark, we needed the visuals to kind of bring some light into the situation. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for asking me.
Okay, so next slide, Akemi. So I had also invited Wanda Sabir to read one of her poems, which is in the book, and to show her 3 photos. She wasn't able to join us today, but I wanted to honor her many years of service as a poet, educator, and depth psychologist, specializing in reclaiming culture and healing trauma. Next slide. She teaches at the College of Alameda and covers Black arts and culture on radio and print through Wanda's Picks, wandaspicks.com. Next slide. She also reports, she has a column at the San Francisco Bayview, a Black-owned newspaper since 1979, and she's part of the team now that is carrying on the tradition of Dr. Ratcliffe and his wife. These last 2 photos she took in Senegal in 2010. Okay, thanks, Akemi. Let's see, the next reader is Shirley Huey.
Thank you, Shizue. My father died on this day 33 years ago. The length of time for grieving has been as long as Jesus lived, as long as Sam Cooke lived. I often get a giant craving for a burger when I feel the longing for my father. It's like the act of eating will supplant the feeling of pain. Sometimes I imagine I can eat my way through it, like eating my way through a bag of shrimp chips in one sitting. I won't feel so well at the end of it, but the movement and the discipline of digging my hand into the crinkling plastic bag, silver on the inside, my fingers clamping onto each chip like crab claws, compel me. Chip after chip entering my mouth, the crunch of each one, satisfyingly pulverized and then liquefied in my mouth like a compulsion. Is that a thing? A compulsion blender? No, the immersion blender is a handheld tool with a wand, little blades at the bottom, ready to blitz everything it touches. Only now I imagine that it blends the compulsion to eat, grinding it up into something else, something that is the sum of its parts: nostalgia, fear, affection, melancholy, memory, taste, hunger, but also transformed into something new and different at the same time. The compulsion to eat the oily, greasy, salty, fried goodness takes over like a compulsion to grieve on this day. Twinned desires. As a child, I believed that prolonged grieving was bad, that I, like the grown-ups, needed to show a happy face and not more tears. That tears and suffering were shameful and not to be shared with the world. Observable grief with its balled up Kleenex and uncontrollable tears scared me. It still sometimes scares me, even in myself. Like the younger me, I want reassurance that someone is in control. So I channel my feelings into eating, a compulsion to eat things that remind me of my dad, even if the food can be unhealthy. When I was a little girl, my dad would take my brother and I for burgers at classic San Francisco places sometimes, like Zim's or the Hippo. Sometimes we'd go to Mickey D's for a Big Mac. Today, though, I think I'm healing. I don't feel the need for a burger. I don't need food to comfort me about my dad. I went to the water today, and that was enough.
Thank you, Shirley. Next is Sridevi Ramanathan.
Great, thank you. Okay. Can you all hear me okay? Okay, I've got a lot of background here because of a neighbor's radio, but my piece is called Death and Technology, the Great Connectors. We had to cancel my mom's trip to Texas, even though her brother was in the ICU. It was mid-March, the shelter-in-place mandates had just begun, and there were still too many questions about the virus. My uncle had suffered major health issues before, but had somehow always bounced back. Our family gave the medical field all due credit, but we also believed that divine hands had carried him through. It made sense because despite living in the US for decades, my uncle had never stopped practicing the daily Hindu rituals he'd been taught in boyhood. So he'd actually earned the blessings responsible for keeping him thriving to this point. But this time was different. Cancer had left my uncle's body frail and knocked out his usual hopefulness. My dad mourned that the hands reaching to carry my uncle this time could be Yamas, the Hindu god of death. Mom didn't want to agree, but she couldn't disagree either. And I wondered in my mind, would Yama come around to the same family so soon? Just months earlier, my mother's other brother, the one in India, had suddenly passed away. Travel to India has never been quick, simple, or inexpensive. No one in my family could go there when he died, and we were still reeling from the shock of his loss. Now, my Texas uncle was in the hospital, where COVID policy banned even my aunt and cousin, his wife and daughter, from visiting. After spending a few weeks isolated in a hospital room, my uncle died alone. Alone. That's the part that pierces my heart and makes me cry every time I think about it. He was alone. He didn't have COVID, but because of it, he died alone in a hospital. But COVID offered an unexpected gift. Action sans travel. My extended family was spread out around the world through different times. Yet we synchronized in cyberspace at the memorial home, all thanks to technology. The funeral home wasn't equipped for virtual services, however, so we couldn't see my uncle's body and the audio kept cutting out. None of us were feeling the calm of closure, so we set up a virtual meeting immediately afterwards to connect as a family. Many Hindus believe that if a person's ashes are scattered in the holy river Ganga, the soul will be released from the cycle of births. Mom and my uncles grew up in Kumbakonam, the temple town of South India. The sacred Kaveri River flows through it, which the locals will confirm is the Ganga of the South, equally auspicious. My uncle's love for his hometown was stubborn. The absolute only way to complete this Janma, this life incarnation of his soul, is to bring him back to Mother Kaveri. My cousins and I agreed, until he wasn't really gone. When my Texas uncle died, his wife, the wife and son of the uncle who had died in India a few months prior, happened to be in Kumbakonam. They had gone there to check on my grandparents' house when the pandemic hit. The government of India had abruptly closed all businesses and halted all transportation services. So my aunt and cousin were stuck indefinitely. Give us a tour, I said to my cousin. He flipped his phone and showed us the front room. The open air patio had not been sealed off. My grandfather's tulsi plant altar, still painted with red and white stripes, stood there. What symbolized the Kumbakonam home for me, however, stood in the backyard. Show us the well. Living in Kumbakonam meant pulling water for your bath and daily needs. It was hard work and a hassle, but what a difference from life in this. That's why the nostalgia of the well never wore off. Yes, it's still full, my cousin tells us. Throughout the years, everyone on my mother's side of the family has traveled across thousands of miles or kilometers by air, rail, car, rickshaw, and even bull cart to meet in my grandparents' home to be with family. Now, after a long time, here we were again, and another memory was made. Travel? Not necessary. We may gather there in person yet again once the pandemic is over. Some of my uncle's ashes still need to be taken to the Kaveri River. In the meantime, we meet virtually via our Kumbakonam Cousins group. I type in the question, does the well in Kumbakonam get water from the Kaveri River? Good question. I don't know, but check out this picture I found of our parents when they were kids, a cousin responds. Wow, how old do you think they were then, answers another. And so the conversation and connection continues. Thank you.
Thank you, Sridevi.
Thank you.
The next reader is Tiny Gray Garcia. Tiny, are you here?
Yes, I am. Sorry.
Hey.
Give me 5 seconds because I'm trying to get the camera to work. Hold on. I will be right there. Okay. I think I got it. Here we go.
Okay, cool.
Are we good? You got me? Okay. Hello, family. First of all, thanking ancestors of this land, thanking Chisaway for your tireless work. I hope people heard the call. Chisaway, please put your Venmo in the chat again. I have 2 people gonna donate. So I'm a poverty scholar, that houseless mama, that houseless daughter. I'm a poverty scholar. All those people you don't want to see, never want to be, look away from me. What you gonna do, arrest me? We're in your city. I'm a poverty scholar and I rock my jailhouse attire because me and my po mama did jail time in this occupied indigenous holler. I'm a poverty scholar, the melanin challenged daughter of a strong Afro-boat equal mama for without whom there would be no me. A mama soltera and a welfare queen. I'm going to read a little bit of the beautiful story, well, I should say the beautiful book that Chisaway put together that all of you powerful Palabra creators, contributed to, that I feel blessed to be a part of. And I'll just read a little bit of it because of our time limitation. COVID ain't got nothing on the trauma in our heads. Minutes leaked into hours, hours into days, and days into weeks. Time passed in that molasses sort of way. The time passes for traumatized peoples who can't stop thinking, worrying, activating, working, because the minute we slow down, even a little, everything that we are working so hard to forget fills our heads like a spigot. We start obsessing and depressing and getting lost in the silent terror of our trauma. The past can lurk there in the shadows and drive us to seek the man's poison, dangerous killer substances, and our own death just to quiet the sound. We held each other, not actually, but spiritually and metaphorically, held each other's stories and shared survival tips for navigating through the violence of our own dangerous minds, tips that have kept us alive this far, even when we thought we couldn't go on any longer. Eventually, we were healed, air quotes, from COVID-19. I never felt exactly the same. And I'll just skip ahead to another piece. Wealth hoarding kills, radical redistribution heals. Now let's get real about something, family. These tinctures and vitamins and organic food and produce aren't cheap. Health in Americlan is tied to access and resources. It is one of the many reasons we po folks at Homefulness and Poor Magazine work so hard to get organic, homemade, healthy food, bougie, organic vitamins at the Sliding Scale Cafe each week, and why we collaborate with conscious wealth hoarders, redistributing to us houseless and poor peoples. And lastly, I'll just finish it out. Cancer ain't got nothing on the cancer called trauma that plagues my mind. As I sit and try to rest, my mind wanders back to when me and mama, above all so desperately alone, Whenever crisis would hit, there was no one to call, nowhere to stay, no one to talk to or community to call on. My mama was a mixed race, unwanted orphan, an unprotected child who suffered severe abuse in orphanages and violent racist foster homes throughout her childhood. She had no reason to believe in people or institutions because they had always let her down. So when crisis hit, we were all we had. Oh, Mateo, ashe, ahu, and thank you everybody for your palabras and your words, and above all, she's away for being such a warrior of the word.
Well, you know, when I first started doing these anthologies and asking for submissions from folks, I did not expect that so many of the submitters were not only writers, but doers. You know, they put their muscle where their words were. And yeah, Tiny is one of those folks. And the person that I skipped, sorry, Susanna, is another one. She's assistant medical director at Clínica de la Raza when she is not writing the most amazing poetry. Susana Prever Perez. Sorry.
It's okay, Shiz. Thank you so much for this beautiful book and this beautiful evening. Everybody's words have been so moving. I'm so honored to be in this book. I'm going to share the two pieces I have in the book. The first is called Aquí se habla español. Mimi told me her tongue was whipped by a wasp of a woman for speaking Spanish. This was not rural Florida, a Burger King where days before 2 white patrons pounced the Puerto Rican manager, told him to go back to his Mexican country for speaking Spanish. This was liberal San Francisco, the Presidio, former fortress by the sea, seized by the US for Mexico in a bloody land grab war. I might have flicked the wasp away, snarled, "Translate this," middle finger in the air. But Mimi wears pearl earrings and said, "Excuse me?" Right eyebrow hiked to her hairline. What's happening to the Bay? Who's flipping barrios to bohemian chic? Who's arrived? What do they add and subtract? And who does the math? Money pours in through Silicon while black and brown stream out. Realtors are the new rock stars. Mortgage bankers rumble the bass. And they're all getting high on the boom. We said goodbye to a neighbor off to convert gritty factories to glittery condos. A pinstripe party guest asked, "Where?" "Jingletown," she giggled. I leaned in with that Oakland history of that working class Mexican neighborhood, how back in the day men could be heard coming home half a block away, dollars pay jingling in their pockets. My story was sliced midair by the pinstripe guest. Is it safe? I said Mexican. He heard criminal. I left the bash, shared my despair with a friend. He may not be the racist you say, he said, playing devil's advocate. Who the hell lawyers for Lucifer? People get a certain image when you say ghetto, he said. I didn't say ghetto. I said working class Mexican neighborhood. Dios mío, ayúdanos, Señor. In the locker room at a public pool, 2 English speakers ping-pong words. Consonants bounce off concrete walls, sprout an ache in the nape of my neck. I hold my tongue. They have every right. But when I think of Mimi, of who's allowed and who's disavowed, bile burns my mouth. I summon antidotes, distill words, conjure what Mimi might have said. Esta linda tierra era mexicana. Todavía se oyen los dulces retumbos. Aquí sí se habla español. And this next short piece is a poem of remembrance to my late husband, Jose Perez. And thank you, Shiz, so much for putting his picture in the book. It was so meaningful to me when I opened it up yesterday when I came. This is for him. Mi querido negrito en su día. December 11th arrived, enrobed in fog and missing, and the warm cocoon of a cantaloupe room you painted before you became one with the wind, your ashes dancing above Aguadilla. Born in that place of little waters, though some say Aguadilla is not Spanish, but Taíno for garden. Hijo de palmas, orquídeas, y olas del mar crashing on ivory sand. Your song ran along stone rivers, Rio Piedras where you grew, sweet mangoes bursting as it rained upon your flat cement roof. I place a slice of that fruit like a heart upon your altar, and a flag of your beloved Borinquen, black and white in a sky like leche de coco that once fed your vibrant flesh. En el cielo, incancara nublado, your soul, still bright, veins the gift of you, like rivulets of molten gold. Thank you.
Thank you, Susanna. Okay. Next is Tony Alderondo.
Thank you so much. In the name of poetry and all that is an essential truth in your life, everyone in the Zoom, please buy this book. Hidden inside its beautiful pages, its pictures, paintings, and poetry is healing medicine for the soul. And I'm happy to be a part of it. Thank you, Shizu. And from the page 21, Inside the Heart of Essential Truths, lies this poem, my dedication to Oakland. I am the town. I am the athletic, the raider, that Golden State warrior. The Indian, the African, the Asian, the Latino, the colors of the rainbow, yo. I am the town. I am that liquor store on International Boulevard between fate and destiny, where lovers walk, yet crimes are committed, where flowers blossom and bloom, yet bullets singing last lullabies fly by. And way too many black and brown young men and women in Oakland have to die. I am the town. But why, oh why must our young go so soon to meet their doom? Today I speak as their poet, yet I am the elephant in the room. I am the town. I am that Oakland teacher who can barely live on that ridiculous teacher's wage, who's living paycheck to paycheck, which should be a warning label at the bottom of my doctor's prescriptions page. I am the town. I am that East Bay resident who sleeps under an Oakland moon, where the police are blindfolded by dollar bills and cheap thrills, where they avoid the East Oakland and West Oakland, but not them Oakland hills. I am the town. I am that brave father who deep in his heart weeps in his heart and wants so bad to do so good. But the way things are on the streets today is too afraid of the folks in his own neighborhood. I am the town. I am joyed and pained at the same time. Yet this poet is willing to do what he has to do to help make Oakland shine. Oakland, California, where we build communities up and not tear them down. I shout out loud, I am the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. So now, last but not least by any means, to Rita Mikhail.
Okay. Oh, I see. Okay. Okay. Let me, I'm trying to get the video to work. Okay. I unmuted myself later. Okay. Set. Okay. Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Shizu. Everyone, it's been a journey. And every time I listen, it's like I never have writer's block. There's so much to write about. And listening to Tiny's information about her mother's foster care, and then all the stuff I have not written about foster care and rape and death threats and all of that stuff, but survived it, okay? I'm somewhat surviving, but I'm still seeing what's happening to our world. And I know you're going to make this money. I know this is coming. It's coming, okay? It's coming. Yes. This piece is called What Happened. I'm reading one. What happened to him? Did you see him? I've not heard from him. What happened? He's someone's father, son. Appears he's gone ghost. Have you seen him? Last saw him in the store, paying for his son's birthday bike, so proud. No problem between him and the clerk. He pays part cash, part credit card. So proud. So proud this young chocolate 30-something father buying a bike for his son's birthday. Receives his receipt, heads for the exit. Police watch, stops him. What's wrong, he asks. I have my receipt. They won't answer him. What's wrong? What did I do? I have my receipt. My son is waiting for me. I told him I have something special for him. He's waiting for me. Police smirk as he handcuffs him. Another takes his son's new bike. Another empties his pockets, takes wallet, change, and receipt. What did I do? What did I do? My son is waiting for me. Don't you have a son? How would your son feel if you didn't come home? To police, his Black life did not matter. Thank you. That's a, I would have thought of other endings, but that is, it's just very disturbing, very disturbing. And so much is happening. Having published 72 anthologies of children's poetry, watching what they see and go through. My God. Anyway, thank you, Shizu. Thank you, everyone, for we're moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rita. Yeah, your readings are always so powerful. You really bring it alive. It's we all need to live with that. Yeah, it doesn't matter what color our skin is. The Black and brown people are suffering every day. They're being attacked every day, and Indigenous people as well. And those of us that are less targeted, we need to carry that pain with us, because we need to make changes in the society. So thank you for a powerful ending, Rita. Anyway, thank you all for coming, and thank you, Kemi and Rachel, for hosting. I really appreciate the fact that the Oakland Asian Cultural Center is willing to reach out and do multicultural things. Even though they're in the heart of Chinatown, they are also in the heart of Oakland. And I really love the fact that you make the facility as accessible as you do. Anyway, Kemi is always a joy to work with. Thank you so much. And believe it or not, we're going to have another reading this coming Monday at Bird and Beckett. Kim Shuck is hosting her fourth Monday monthly gathering, and invited some folks to read there. And Tarita, I'm going to ask that you go first since you had to go last this time. Anyway, so I'm too brain dead right now to read the list, but it's going to be 10 readers and an open mic afterwards. So come and listen and read your stuff. Anyway, thank you so much, everybody. There's probably other things I need to say, but I am too brain dead to do it. So I'm just going to say thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Shizue. What a phenomenal anthology. Congratulations to everyone, all the contributors. And we did drop, there were a lot of links dropped in the chat. So don't worry if you miss it. We'll send out a post-event email to everybody. And see you all next time. Have a great evening, everyone.
You too, Akemi.
Thank you, everyone. This is such a beautiful.
Thank you, everyone. Amazing.
Always.
Donate.